Well, thank you, Rob and Randy, and congratulations to all of you here. And it's wonderful to see so many old friends here on the 100th anniversary of UT Austin's Department of Sociology. As you know, I served as a faculty member in this department for many years. Contrary to some rumors, it is not true I was here when the department was founded in 1914. But I did join the department even earlier than Randy knows, 40 years ago in 1974. Johnny Butler and I came at the same time. I left briefly to spend 4 years at the University of Chicago, but I returned in 1981, and I stayed here until 2006, and I am currently an emerita member of the department, so I still consider myself a member of the department. My Texas roots run pretty deep, and coming to Austin always feels like coming home for me. My two sons live here now, and so I have other reasons for being here besides seeing all of you. Anniversaries are a great time for us to reflect and think about the years behind and everything that transpired during those years. Though I'm a little embarrassed by some of the photographs that are being used to do that. You know, a married couple on the occasion of their 20th anniversary might reflect on their life together and the places they traveled, and if they had children, the children they reared. But just as important, they look to the future, and they think about what the years ahead will look like. In 3 years, the University of Virginia will celebrate its bicentennial, and that'll be an occasion for us to look back on the university's rich history. But it's also an occasion to look forward and think about what we would like the university to be in its third century. That's the same opportunity the sociology department has now, to think what the second 100 years would look like. Sociology as an academic discipline has changed a great deal in the last 100 years, but there's no question the collective achievement of this department has made a difference in the conception of sociology both nationally and globally. It's also a time for each of you to reflect on what you've accomplished in your own careers as sociologists so far. But it's also a chance to look at what the future holds for you, just as it holds for this department. I think you're an ideal group to ponder this question because you represent such a vast array of sociological perspectives. One of the strengths of this department has been that it is large and diverse in its academic interests. And in that sense, it's a microcosm of the entire field of sociology. So the department has always emphasized training in theory as well as in methods and statistics. And the methods are both quantitative and qualitative. And the areas of specialization pretty much span the breadth of the field: criminology and deviance, demography, education, family, gender, health, politics and development, race and ethnicity, occupations and work, social stratification, and other areas. When Thomas Jefferson founded UVA, he said it should explore every subject susceptible of its contemplation. And I think here in the sociology department, you've done a pretty good job of that with respect to all the things that sociologists can contemplate. But in talking about the future of sociology, I think we ought to talk first about the future of the liberal arts. It's a larger question, a controversial question, and one that is being posed and discussed and debated in many corners of the academy and elsewhere. The question is, what is the future of the liberal arts? Today, you will hear the argument that a liberal arts education is too costly, too elitist, and too impractical for the needs of today's workforce. It is a luxury that universities, and especially public universities, simply can no longer afford. Well, those of us who believe in the value of the liberal arts have a well-rehearsed counter-argument. We say a liberal arts education teaches students to be lifelong critical thinkers, to have a different perspective on the world around them, to acquire thoughtful habits of mind, to appreciate cultural differences and respect human diversity, to approach decision-making ethically, and to integrate multiple perspectives before arriving at a decision. We say, as author Andrew Delbanco has said, that liberal arts education helps students develop the qualities of mind and heart for reflective citizenship. Debating the issue of the liberal arts has become kind of a national pastime. Over the past 2 years, I've been asked to participate in at least 5 events focused on the supposedly shaky future of the liberal arts. One such event was titled Rethinking Success, From the Liberal Arts to Careers in the 21st Century. This conference focused on one of the issues at the heart of the debate. At a time when the value of any college degree is being measured by its utility in the job market and by the return on investment, some people think that the non-technical skills from a liberal arts education are useless, and so students trained in a liberal arts discipline are basically unemployable. But in fact, the opposite is true. Here's a story to illustrate my point. Katie Couric is an alumna of our College of Arts and Sciences. And last year she came to Charlottesville to moderate a panel discussion about endowment giving. The panelists were all highly successful UVA alumni who have made gifts to endow professorships in our College of Arts and Sciences. So inevitably the question turned to the value of a liberal arts education. Katie Couric asked the panelists this question: in your roles as business leaders, would you prefer to hire a graduate with a degree in marketing, finance, or some other specialized field? Or would you prefer to hire a liberal arts graduate? One of the panelists is the CEO of the largest Anheuser-Busch distributor in the country. Another is the CEO of a prosperous private equity firm. Another chairs a medical facilities company. A fourth is a retired partner from a major law firm. Each of them agreed they would hire the liberal arts graduate over the specialist any day. As one of them said, I can teach a new employee the work, but I can't teach him how to think. Former Seagram Corporation CEO Edgar Bronfman expressed a similar view in an essay that appeared in Inside Higher Education. When aspiring business leaders and entrepreneurs come to him for recommendations about which college major to choose, his advice is simple: get a liberal arts degree. Bronfman is a history major who spent his entire career in business, and he said, among all the people who have worked for me over the years, the ones who stood out the most were the people who were able to see beyond the facts and figures before them and understand what they mean in a larger context. Most business leaders agree with Bronfman. In a 2013 survey of more than 300 CEOs, 74% said they believe a liberal education creates a more effective, dynamic worker than specialized training does. And 95% said they look for college graduates who can think clearly and solve problems and can communicate their ideas with good oral and written skills, the exact products of a good liberal education. These survey numbers seem to suggest the value of a liberal arts education is obvious, but misperceptions have muddled the discourse about the liberal arts because so many people have warped definitions of what the liberal arts are. Let me share a couple more stories to illustrate that point. The late John Strasburger, former president of Ursinus College, was a vocal proponent of liberal arts education. A few years before his death, he wrote an article about a focus group that he conducted. This focus group was made up of parents of prospective students who were asked about their perceptions of the liberal arts. 19 of the 20 parents in the focus group said that the liberal arts were either soft, touchy-feely subjects or subjects that were left-wing relics from the 1960s. They should know it goes all the way back to 1914 at least. So here's another story. When UVA's football team played in a bowl game a few years ago, and by the way, that's a big deal for us. I know it's not for you, but for us it's a big deal. We held an academic panel on the morning of the game for our alumni and fans. One alumnus posed this question to the dean of our College of Arts and Sciences. He said, given all the national emphasis on the STEM disciplines, what do you think is the prospect for the liberal arts at UVA? Well, the dean pointed out she was the dean of both arts and sciences, and that our college produces more STEM majors than any other school at UVA. In fact, 1/3 of our college students graduate with majors in the sciences. That often means a second major, and so it's not uncommon for us to see a student who will graduate with, say, majors in both English and physics. I think these kinds of comments illustrate one of the key problems we face when we try to make the case for the liberal arts. there's a broad and flagrant misunderstanding of what the liberal arts actually are. And so we as proponents of the liberal arts need to take some responsibility for cleaning up the confusion. We need to do a better job of defining the liberal arts, defending the human value of liberal learning, and explaining the practical utility of a liberal arts degree in the job market. So within the broad ongoing defense of the liberal arts, sociology also has to justify its role in the curriculum by showing its value as a disciplined instrument of research and education. A legislator in Virginia, whom I will not name, but who is the majority leader of one of the houses, said to me when I was in his office, "Well, after all, what could anybody do with a sociology degree?" I seriously considered telling him. But what I did instead was to talk about the skills that a sociology degree develops, as well as the skills really that you develop in any liberal arts education. You know, as sociologists, we take the view that societal behavior is structured and organized, and therefore it's subject to rigorous and formal study. That's not necessarily a popular idea in America, where we often see history as the biography of great individuals, and where we often analyze problems in big, complex corporations by saying we must fire the CEO. The notion that there are systems and that systems have consequences is something sociologists understand, but which much of the world around us does not understand. We study and teach by the scientific method just as surely as our colleagues in biology do. So I'm preaching to the choir about this, but just as we need to stand up for the liberal arts in public discourse, we need to stand up for our discipline too. We need to make the case that social science is science, and that sociologists can develop insights and create solutions to global problems, just as scientists and engineers can. As members of the sociology choir, our job is to get the audience to sing along with us. Looking back over the past century of sociology is instructive as we try to envision what the next century will hold. Over the 100 years this department has existed, sociologists here and elsewhere have offered insights into some of society's most vexing problems: poverty, crime, social stratification and inequality, immigration, globalization, and other issues. Sociology was one of the first academic disciplines to conduct serious, rigorous studies of inequality in race, gender, and class. Efforts to demonstrate the impact of sociology over the past century have taken several forms. Some years ago, the International Sociological Association issued an opinion survey among its members to identify the most influential work in sociology. ISA members were asked to list the books published in the 20th century that had most profoundly affected their work as sociologists. So the top 20 includes Max Weber's Economy and Society, Robert Merton's Social Theory and Social Structure, George Herbert Mead's Mind, Self, and Society, and other germinal books. But at number 2 on the list is a title familiar to all of you, The Sociological Imagination, published in 1959 by a proud son of Texas, C. Wright Mills, born in Waco, who earned his undergraduate degree in sociology at UT Austin. In the half century since its publication, The Sociological Imagination has become an essential sociology text and a staple of most undergraduate sociology courses. Mills produced a framework for understanding our social environment based on a dichotomy in which the personal troubles of individuals are viewed in the context of the public issues that shape the larger society. Having a sociological imagination enables us to see the connections between the two. He wrote that neither the life of an individual nor the history of a society can be understood without understanding both. In some sense, sociology over the past 100 years has been an extended exercise in the sociological imagination, viewing the behavior of individuals against the backdrop of massive change in the makeup of our society, exploring both the connection and the friction between individuals and society, exploring how human society can be an instrument of human happiness as well as human misery. Through the lens of the sociological imagination, we've studied every specialization within our field over the past century. And the same will be true of the next 100 years of sociology as well. But when we get more specific, then it's perhaps helpful to use the lens of our own specializations. Mine is demography. There are major shifts in demography happening all over the world, and more changes are coming, and they will pose challenging questions for sociologists as well as for policymakers. Here's a few examples. Throughout human history, high fertility and high mortality determine the size and age structure of human populations. Today, because of advances in public health and in medicine, we have the first sustained low fertility, low mortality populations in human history, in the United States, in Europe, in Japan, and increasingly in China. This combination yields a much older age structure, and with this older age structure comes significant economic and social effects. Over the past century, we evolved our safety nets to accommodate a population pyramid that has more young people at the broad base. But that's changing. With more people living longer, we now have the needs of two generational groups at odds with each other. One generation needs education, and the other needs health care. And our government agencies are struggling to support both of these demands. One question for sociologists is, how should we negotiate intergenerational equity under such conditions? Or to put the question more plainly, how will nations balance the costs of educating the young with providing medical care for the elderly without shortchanging either one? Here's another demographic shift that raises questions for sociologists. This department is famous for its early and consistent study of immigration. All over the world, populations are living in close proximity to each other that never did before. A prime example would be London. London's one of the most ethnically diverse cities in the world. 50 non-Indigenous groups have populations of over 10,000 in London. More than a third of Londoners, almost 3 million people, were born outside the UK. Over 300 languages are spoken in London's schools, with Bengali, Punjabi, Cantonese, and Mandarin the most common. London is perhaps an extreme example, but the phenomenon is occurring all over the world. Sociologists will have fertile ground to study the relationships among groups that suddenly find themselves living and working side by side. We will need to see how they negotiate the interactions, how class dimensions play out on top of the obvious racial, ethnic, and cultural dimensions. So here's another question for sociologists. When we think about education for students in general, what kind of education is the right kind for the 21st century? This semester at UVA, I'm teaching a course on the 21st century labor force. In this course, we're discussing the predictions of some futurists that 80% of current jobs will be automated away within a generation. How do you prepare students for a future in which 80% of the current jobs no longer exist, and you have no idea what the new industries and technologies that will produce the new jobs are likely to be? It's a challenge for both the students and for the faculty who teach them, not to mention the anxious parents who are hoping we get it right. The best forecast suggests that the new world of work may look quite different from the old world of work. While there will be growth in some occupational categories that require only a high school diploma, for the most part, those with only high school education will be left behind. Many occupations will be obliterated by robots, unmanned vehicles, and sensors. Customized manufacturing may succeed mass manufacturing. And we are now starting to see some jobs onshored instead of offshored. But at the same time, the virtual offshoring of additional white-collar jobs is likely to become more prevalent. What does that mean for tomorrow's world of work? How should universities train students for a future we ourselves cannot see? Here's another question for us. What are the sociological implications of living in the age of big data? Because of the massive, complex data sets that have become realities of our modern world, Developing the computing problem and the power and the analytical tools to secure, manage, mine, and manipulate data sets has become a global priority. And it is a priority in every discipline. Yesterday at UVA, I participated in a launch event for a new high-powered computing cluster that we acquired for research purposes. This will greatly enhance our faculty's ability to engage in computationally intensive and data-intensive research. I'll spare you the technical details about the petabytes, gigabytes, and so on, and simply say it's a large machine and it's very fast. But to me, the remarkable thing was the vast number of disciplines represented in the room waiting to use it, from fields as disparate as astronomy and systems engineering, all our biomedical fields, to psychology. Everybody had good use for this additional computational power. High-powered computing and data science are already having significant effects in sociology, and I think these effects are likely to increase in the years ahead. When this department was founded 100 years ago, nobody could have envisioned the emergence of computational sociology. In fact, when I went to graduate study at the University of Chicago, we had these immense machines, kind of glorified adding machines, that you had to crank and pull down after every operation. I had to do Hollerith cards for my dissertation. You know, no one who has studied sociology in the last 20 years has any idea what a Hollerith card is. In 1914, there was no computer simulation, artificial intelligence, or social network analysis. Today, these are all well on their way to being established parts of our discipline. We just launched a Pan-University Data Science Institute to bring together faculty and students who are working in computation, science, engineering, mathematics, commerce, social science, and the humanities to collaborate on research. And it's given us ways to tackle new problems with surprising people coming forward to do the tackling. Here's an example. We have a systems engineering professor named Matthew Gerber who has figured out how to use Twitter data to predict crime patterns. All of you criminologists need to listen up. Mr. Gerber gathered more than 1.5 million tweets tagged with GPS coordinates in Chicago between the months of January and March 2013. He also collected data on all documented crimes during the same period in the same areas. He found criminals often say things in their tweets that can be used to determine when and where they will commit crimes next. So he developed a computer algorithm that can sift through 800,000 tweets at a time, separating them by their GPS coordinates into neighborhoods. He then analyzed the tweets in each neighborhood to determine what people in the vicinity were tweeting. He compared these data to historical crime data for the same location. Then he tried to do a prediction of crime in those neighborhoods. His research improved predictions for 19 of 25 types of crime that happened last year in metropolitan Chicago. And this project's drawn the attention of police departments in New York and other cities. That could be a use of big data channeled towards the public good. But there are also concerns about the ways big data leads to a loss of privacy and perhaps a loss of human freedom. Last summer, we learned that our own National Security Agency constructed a massive surveillance network that allowed the agency to track internet traffic and cell phone communication in the United States. The NSA defends its practices as being legal and respectful of our privacy as citizens. But what are the implications of these new capabilities for high-tech surveillance, for individual privacy, and certainly for social policy? These are issues that sociologists, as well as those who pursue other disciplines, have a role to play. So, in my comments so far about issues shaping the future of sociology, I left out one important factor, which might be the most important factor. The future of sociology will depend on the quality of the teaching and research conducted by sociologists in our colleges and universities. Through your teaching, you are training the next generation of sociologists who will tackle the complex social challenges of the future, many of which we can't imagine right now. And through your intensive research, you're producing new knowledge that will shape our understanding of those challenges. You carry the future of sociology on your shoulders. It's a great opportunity, but it's a great obligation. On the occasion of your centennial celebration as a department, I congratulate all of you, and I share my best wishes for the next 100 years of sociology at UT Austin.